where is the reality of psychology in someone's system?
When they deviate away from their plan, right? And I think there's two levels to that. There's the first level, which I think we've always agreed on, is like if the plan is shit, right? I think that's a big part for a lot of people is they don't actually have a plan. I think for a lot of people, they can approach trading, if I were to use a metaphor, almost like a chef in a kitchen, where you come home, you open the fridge and you're like, let's see what we can put together. Fun, good date night, terrible business model. Whereas if you were going to operate like a high-end chef, especially at like, went to EMP recently, lived in Madison Park to 3-star Michelin, it's the one menu. You don't get to order. They make the same meal over and over and over. So as a technical edge, if you want to look at it from that point of view, they've perfected it. And that's why they're 3 stars, because every detail is thought out. And you know what's funny about that experience? They ask you at first, right? They try to, make the experience very bespoke to you. And they were like, hey, any allergies or anything? I was like, no, I'm good. Now, I don't like artichokes. Right? I just don't. One of the meals had artichokes. And at the end of it, he was like, how did you think the meals? I was like, yeah, it was good. But I was like, the artichoke one to me was like, whatever. And he was like, I wish you would have told me that. Because they have a backup for every backup. He's like, if you had said you don't like artichoke, you would have got this. And if you didn't have this. So everything is actually really well thought of. And that's from the technical point of view where they've mastered that side. So if you have that side implied, then there's a side of why you don't do something. And I guess in a more typical example is why does a football player miss a penalty shot? Right? And I'm talking like whiff it, not the goalkeeper stopping. I'm just saying like you straight up missed it. You tell me this person doesn't know how to get the ball into the box? Of course they can. Right? But in those moments, it's the pressure. It's, am I going to ruin it? It's I've missed it last time. And I think that's the side of psychology that is less spoken of, is the identity side. Because I get you, like the surface level FOMO and stuff like that. I do get that. A lot of times that's an exposure issue rather than an identity issue. But if you take it, and I'll just to finish the point, I think on the more extreme side, and I've voiced this both on your podcast and another one, is there is a problem with losing a lot of assessments. Like that's our gamified world now. Like a particular person can gamify the assessments, usually someone who's already made it and or has a lot of capital and usually with a certain background. But if you lose 20 FTMOs in a row, I promise you won't feel good. You won't identify as like a memory of a goldfish where you're just like, it's a brand new day, you're fine. No, as soon as you go into drawdown, another failed assessment or another this or the timeline of whatever. So there's so many layers to it that I think that's where it actually really kind of comes in is the identity side of experiences from your childhood to experiences that you go and then who you become. And then who you become self-fulfills future, things to happen, right?
Yeah. So when it comes to psychology, let's take it a layer deeper now. So the psychology things we feel like the greed and the FOMO, which are established ideas, or adherence to a plan. Everyone has a plan, but the psychology gets in the way. So the real thing we're addressing here is the ability to follow the plan. Later on, I'll tie it into when should you manually deviate away, intuition, subjectivity, experience. But let's stick at it for just everyone. The things that are pulling you away from your psychology and adherence would either be your animalistic brain, survival instinct kicks in, you manually override it through intuition, or let's say you think with that is subconscious competence. So we're mixing a lot of ideas here or abstracts, but let's start off with the animalistic brain or survival instincts, or that brings us on to risk, let's say, where you see an opportunity in the market and you know that it can either be a positive or negative outcome, but it's not weighed so equally. And what I mean by this is, in a survival instinct, you hear a noise in the bushes, you think, I might catch a prey and therefore I get a meal, or I might find a predator and I might die. So it's not always binary 50-50. Maybe we have some skews based on your exterior environment. If you got financial anchors, your risk of ruin may feel more dramatic than someone who has a high-paying job. So let's start off with these animalistic traits that we have that are just in our deep brain that may express within our trading behavior.
Sure, it's complex. All right, if you start with the survivor side, I think that'll be the driving force in most situations because you have to get by. You have to prove something. So either you're in the younger demographic who's early 20s, late teens, maybe mid-20s. You probably want to buy a house in the next few years. You probably want to get married. You probably want to have children, support a wife, whatever. There's a side then, people, how the world's viewing you. I have to prove myself. I have to have
Validation.
Results.
Yeah.
Right? Results are a self-implied outcome to a degree, meaning like no one cares about your trading results in the sense of like your friend, like no one in the world, when you kind of zoom out sometimes, no one cares. It's
but
just
you.
But
it feels important.
It feels very important,
or, yes.
Right? You feel there's a clock, right? When you go to your girlfriend, you say, hey, I'm going to become a millionaire. She's like, that's awesome. You're like, yeah, she believes you. And then it's 2 years later and you're like, babe, I swear I'm going to pull this off, right? And then that's worrisome because at the end of the day, it's not just her indefinite support or whatever. And again, to any relationship, but it's important that at some point you can't expect people not in trading to understand trading and the level of depth it takes, because at the end of the day, there still is a level of outcome that happens within trading that gives you an idea of what you're doing, right? Which is unheard of in every other situation, meaning, as I